your misalignment will be expressed in the market. You go from a marketing ad to the sales process to an interaction with the sales rep, that entire experience, you might feel bamboozled because of the misalignment across what's being said and being done, where instead, if you can be aligned on the inside, that will be expressed on the outside.
Misalignment isn't just a behind-the-scenes issue. It directly sabotages your market presence, confuses your customers, and ultimately costs you revenue. Founder of SD Lab, Tom Slocum, who has over 17 years of sales expertise, has made it his mission to help businesses unlock the true potential of aligned sales and marketing. Having called over 500,000 cold leads, Tom has built revenue systems that transform how businesses scale and close. Welcome to the DesignRush podcast. I'm your host, Kia Johnson. In this episode, we're unlocking the secrets to building a sales and marketing collaboration that doesn't just function, it dominates. Get ready for insights that will transform how your teams drive growth and deliver results.
The world is in a very selfish state, and you've got marketing focused in their world. They're doing their thing. They're not looking over the fence at sales in any shape or form. They don't care. They're focused on their stuff, and you stay in their lane. And same with sales, when in reality, sales is a team effort. It is an entire organization. It is a revenue engine, and you need to be aligned straight out the gate.
Tom's approach is all about action, empowerment, and results. From driving alignment that doubles close rates to building systems that eliminate silos, he's a thought leader on how to create a seamless customer journey that maximizes revenue potential.
You build out like a whole little org chart, revenue's here, and then you kind of start breaking down the pieces and put everybody in where they need to go. And then as long as that all plugs and plays and executes accordingly, your North Star of revenue will drive, right? And everybody sees where they fit in, what their impact is, and then they're accountable to that part of that funnel. So sharing that accountability and then just creating a culture of constant feedback.
If you're ready to break free from stagnant practices, revolutionize your team's performance, and truly embrace alignment as a daily practice, this episode is your roadmap. Got a story worth sharing? Email us at spotlight@designrush.com. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more insights that will transform the way you grow your business. Let's get started. Hey, Tom, it's so great having you with us on the DesignRush podcast. Hope you're doing well today.
I'm doing very well. It's excited to be here and get to dive into some really awesome topics with you today. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. I'm just as excited as well. But before we get to the nitty-gritty, I'm going to start out with our rapid fire questions. So I'm putting you in the hot seat and I hope you're ready for me.
We're ready.
Yeah. Okay. So question number 1 is, what's the one thing you believe most sales teams overlook when trying to scale? Just one thing.
The one thing that I believe most sales teams are really overlooking is a unified process, a very clear, repeatable process within their motion.
Right. Okay. Question number 2. What's a sales myth you wish would disappear forever?
This is a good one. After making 500,000 cold calls, building my entire career off of it, cold calling is dead. I think it's not dead. It is evolving. Obviously, things are going there, but I'm just tired of hearing that sales myth because it's not true.
Okay, so now question number 3. In one sentence, how do you define alignment between sales and marketing?
Alignment within sales and marketing means both teams are truly working towards a shared goal with a unified message, and they use consistent data to really dive in and measure that success.
Okay, question 4. How do you keep sales teams motivated during tough times?
This is a good one. You focus on the wins. You have fun. Motivate them during tough times. They're already down enough on themselves. So create a culture of celebrating effort, not just outcomes. Reps really need to feel progress to stay motivated.
All right, and then what's the most underrated skill in sales?
This one I am torn between, but I am going to go with empathy. Empathy in a sales process and within the entire interactions with customers, clients, and internally.
So now, Tom, in 2024, there was actually research, right, from HubSpot that showed only 23% of sales and marketing teams feel aligned. Okay, yet aligned teams are 67% more likely to actually convert leads. So what would you say alignment between like sales and marketing actually truly means in your experience, and why do you think so many businesses are really struggling to achieve it?
This one has just been a common thorn in the side for, I started my career in 2007, and I've watched it in many orgs. And then I've been at the orgs where there's a well-oiled machine, right? And so alignment isn't just, it's more than just proximity or shared meetings. It's truly about building systems where both teams can be accountable to those same outcomes, right? Like the revenue. Sales and marketing need to speak the same language, and they need to collaborate from day one on the ICP, the messaging, campaign execution. You've all seen this, is you'll wake up in the morning to emails, and you've got an email from the AE, the sales rep, and the marketing team. And it's 3 different messages about the same thing. And you're like, what are we doing, guys? What's happening here? And so most businesses struggle because they just view alignment as a quarterly initiative and not truly a daily habit. And so it's, removing the silos, and they struggle with it because they get in silos. The world is in a very selfish state, and you've got marketing focused in their world. They're doing their thing. They're not looking over the fence at sales in any shape or form. They don't care. They're focused on their stuff, and they stay in their lane. And same with sales, when in reality, sales is a team effort. It is an entire organization. It is a revenue engine, and you need to be aligned straight out the gates on, like I said, the ICP, the messaging, campaign execution. All of those things need to be happening. And then, as you saw with the numbers, you'll see the success. You're all working cohesively. And once that alignment is there, what also people don't realize is your misalignment will be expressed in the market. It's seeable. You go from a marketing ad to the sales process to an interaction with a sales rep, that entire experience, you might feel bamboozled because of the misalignment across what's being said and being done. Where instead, if you can be aligned on the inside, that will be expressed on the outside. And then when people come in, they'll get that unified experience with you.
So then you would say that's actually the most underrated first step that teams can take to start aligning more effectively, is actually aligning on the inside. Something as basic as that.
It's just, once you can focus on the inside, really look in and get those 2 teams to understand they do work together. They are tied together. You can't do one without the other. And then once you have that shared commonality and start building together, things are in more alignment.
My next question was going to be about, what the crucial process that you've seen, based on your vast experience that businesses lack, that would actually be one of those core ones that businesses are lacking right now. Is there anything else that you have to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's not just about, getting them in the same room, like I said, quarterly, let's just sync up. That's not what it is. It's not about the meetings. It's about a mindset and accountability. CEOs and leaders need to ensure both teams own shared metrics, right? That pipeline and that revenue is a commonality. They are both responsible to it. And then the big thing, and what makes teams really work together, is feedback loops, where marketing is learning from sales' real-world conversations and vice versa. Marketing has one language. We all know this. Marketing and sales talk very different languages, right? You'll see when agencies will have the marketing write the sales outreach for the teams. Can't do that, right? They're looking at how to drive interest on a micro, like through an ad or marketing copy or all these things, where once it gets into the hands of the sales rep, they need to have a little bit of a different structure to their messaging, right? They're having real world conversations, and sales needs to be reporting that back. That's why enriching your contact management system, your CRM, with as much information as possible that marketing, can do things. Half the time, marketing can't even run a rip out campaign, which is like going after competitors' market, because they can't go into their system and even understand who's been in their sales process that came from these competitors, or might have had, not done a deal with us because of said competitor. I ask marketers all the time, hey, give me the last 20 deals you lost to so-and-so. And they're like, we don't have that. We can guess. We could tell you. We hear this name often, but we can't tell you. And so sales has to give that feedback loop. And then marketing at the same time, what is getting people to bite, right? What's things that are getting their attention? What's the intent being shown into our market that might be some relevancy that I can drive through that, right? And so we got to have this alignment about mindset and accountability, shared metrics in there, and then, finding a way to speak each other's language and blend it together.
Okay, so here I am, right? I'm a brand, I'm an agency, and I'm like, okay, I know alignment is an issue, but I actually don't have like the bandwidth to overhaul my entire strategy. What would you suggest I do?
Put it in the hands of them. A lot of times just delegate, right? And lean into and trust your team. And I think that is the hardest struggle for a lot of up and coming brands, a lot of agencies at the beginning. And even the larger scale, there's you start to get into this phase of control. And I think empower them. Get a few that you can get together on both sides of the fence and say, look, we need to tackle this in this next quarter. I can't do a lot of hand holding, but let's collaborate together. And I want to delegate a few things to your guys' direction to number one, let's set up a marketing calendar and get that created that then gets shared with the sales team. So they have our content calendar and they know our campaigns. I can't do that, but we should have that. Jill, can you do that? Great. Okay, we need to be having a weekly sync every Friday. I need you to go set that up. Delegate, right? Get them involved. Let them take that accountability and buy into it and explain the why and the vision and say, look, we're not aligned. And also don't just say we're not aligned and this is an I problem or, oh, we just need to work on this. Explain what misalignment will cost you in the market and the dollars behind that and the revenue that could potentially come because you're so misaligned. That will get people bought into understanding, okay, we need to fix this. We need to focus on, you'll see marketing sharing reports that they're driving this lead funnel going this direction and sales outreach is going the same direction in parallel to those leads, when in reality, they're not going through a marketing funnel and a scoring system for the sales reps, right? And accountability to that pipeline of revenue. They're just like, nope, we sent you over 100 leads this month. You didn't close anything. You guys suck. And it's like, whoa, like, let's look at those leads. Like what it really is, a hot lead. I set my sales team, that marketing put together and communicate things. Also, the other big story is let them live a day in the life of, and sometimes the CEO doesn't even, again, they're delegating and they don't want to think about it. And they just are like, cool, I've got the team over there, but they don't know what's happening actively in the trenches daily, right? And so same with sales and marketing. You got to sit together, understand it. And then I've blown sales reps' minds when they've sat with marketing and they come back and they're like, that's why we score stuff that way, Tom. And I'm like, yeah, that's why, that action takes that action. Did they show you the funnel and stuff? He was like, yeah, we sat for like 2 hours. They showed me everything. Now I see where I come in and what's next for me. And like now what these people have done up until my first time calling them, and I'm coming in saying this, and they did that. They're not even there yet in the funnel. And it's like, right. So that then starts, creating that alignment across the board. So that's what I would do is delegate and just kind of communicate to the team where you're at and then get them to buy in and then start making those moves.
And you were talking about, the delegation, yes, that the CEO needs to do, but also that trust that you have to have in your team as well. And we actually chatted with Peter Shankman of Helper Reporter Art Harrow and Shank Minds. And he was talking so much about, the fact that because he speaks more to neurodiversity and using ADHD as a superpower. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And, one of the things he mentioned was he was like, you need to trust, those employees that are working for you. You got to place some sort of trust in there. So, because I feel sometimes, that CEOs do tend to over micromanage. I mean, there's micromanage and then there's over micromanage. And it just becomes this very complicated situation, in the workplace, whereas you could just simplify things, and get to the crux of where you want to be. And sometimes when you let go, you'd be amazed at what people will do when you give them that sort of autonomy. Yeah.
That's what's the crazy part is when you empower people and you can let them, and in that trust, like truly let them fail and be okay with that, right? I think a lot of times you're so quick to crack the whip because they didn't do it your way. Or, it's always that my favorite lesson I learned from a leader one day and giving feedback and working with people is to remove the but and say and instead. Right? So you'll get a project. Somebody will go build a marketing deck for you. They'll send it to you. You told them, and hey, can you do this for me? Go build this. They send it to you. The next morning, you're like, hey, Kai, I looked this over and it was great, but I think you could have done this. And they start critiquing your work. Where instead it's like, hey, thank you for doing this. This structure, this framework is fantastic. I could see the work and thought process here. What I would think would elevate this is, what if we added right here, moving this over here, and then maybe bringing in this element? Do you kind of see where that would take this slide here with the data? And you're building with them and adding on with them versus straight up like just deflating their entire approach, right? Because they didn't do it your way or they didn't do it a certain way. And so just be okay with trusting, letting them fail to a point. Like big failures, obviously we all know, like don't let that, but work with them, empower them, because once you give that trust and then you're a true revenue unit, that's what people have to understand is you have to build a unit, you have to build a collaboration and environment, because when you lock arms, you can do some damage in a market with your clients, with your prospects, the entire process. People are raving about you, and you as a unit are collaborating, communicating, and it's just a force that can't be reckoned with when you can lock in and trust one another. And that happens by allowing them to buy in with you. They want to help you. They do enjoy their job. And if you can't trust them, the big question for all of you listening is, if you're sitting there being like, man, I can't do that with my team, then you need to fire and figure it out, right? And that's a weakness in your area. It's either an internal thing you have to look at on your own in-depth research of yourself of why you're not giving up that control, or if it's, yeah, I couldn't do that, Tom. I don't trust my team to touch anything today. Well, then you need some things to work on. You either need to rehire and kind of get those pieces fixed, or you need to start empowering them to where they can be that person for you, right? Is that something they can reach? Then great, then let's get them in place to start doing that. But if you see that path as not even being possible, that's something you have to look at, and maybe it's time to kind of cut the team and restart with those that you could count on.
How do you then recommend, CEOs actually set shared goals that keep both teams accountable while still letting them own their priorities? And you were talking a bit about, because we were talking about the trust factor and just letting things be, but I want us to really sort of go in there. If you could maybe give me like a top 3 or top 4 of these that you would say, okay, start here, this is what you do, here's where you go, and that's where you end.
Hey, if right now I had my sales and marketing, right? I'm an agency owner, right? I run the SV Lab. I've got my team. But if I were to be walking into a scenario, I got hired and I'm noticing marketing and alignment is just not there, the very first thing you want to do is get boots on the ground and make the time in communicating with that team. So what I would do, and what I mean by that is maybe an anonymous survey out to the group, sales and marketing, with very, very aligned questions to understand their world today. First and foremost, I want to seek to understand before I just jump in and look at what's going on. So I'm going to send maybe an anonymous survey, tell them it needs to be done by Friday. Just be really transparent and honest, because with this feedback, it's not a bad thing. We want to make improvements. So collect it. I might even sit down with a few of them, try to get some one-on-ones with them and just kind of hear from their world on what's your day-to-day looking like right now. What do you believe is misalignment with sales? If I'm talking to marketing, what would you do if you were in my role, right? What would you like to see happening? Gather feedback, right? First and foremost, I just walked into this dumpster fire. I'm going to kind of figure out what's going on. Next, I want to put them in a room together. Now I want to bring it together and maybe go over those results very anonymously, nobody getting blamed on anything, right? A very open environment, and kind of talk about it. And then we're going to then go and jump into, now what do we do? So based on what I gathered, right, we're probably going to set up, cool, marketing, I need you to set up a content calendar on all campaign execution, what you're running, when you're running it, and build it into a content calendar. And we're going to share that with the sales team, okay? So that sales team knows exactly when your campaigns are going out, what's happening. We're not going to see the redundancy in messages to the prospects, the customers. Let's align with a content calendar. Number 2, we're going to set up a bi-weekly and maybe even a monthly, because in my survey, I'm going to ask kind of what they feel is their preference on a bi-weekly or a monthly. And I'm going to set up a reoccurring meeting. Now, yes, we're in the same room, but this is going to be a dedicated time to discuss very certain things that we're seeing, kind of feedback loops there. And then I'm doing feedback loops regularly. We're going to have a sales and marketing channel that could be collaborated in for them both to drop in their thoughts and talk to one another. And then I'm going to kind of put my counsel in place, my kind of team leads in this, and sales and marketing, that'll be my liaisons to kind of keep a pulse on what's going on between the two teams, so I can understand. And I don't got to be there. Again, I'm trusting my team. Obviously, I want my kind of reports monthly on what's going on. My liaisons will write those reports up for me, and it will just evaluate and kind of see what happens in the next few weeks on no more trip ups, no more bottlenecks in the process. We're going to really do some customer exercises. I'm going to bring them all back to kind of starting with the customer, really digging in from a marketing standpoint. Hey, marketers, what do you think are the pain points of our customers? And then ask sales that same question and watch them both give me two different answers, right? And be like, oh, it's this. And they're going to say it's this. And we'll have that moment to be like, and do you see, you're not communicating to each other. You're looking at these things through two different lenses. So that's what I'm kind of doing. That if I walked in right now, or I'm sitting in a situation listening to this episode, and I'm like, all right, what do I do here? Go seek to understand first. Go dive in, learn from them on what's going on, see what you're seeing, because a lot of times they don't even communicate up to the uppers, that by the time you get to this point, all this stuff could have been fixed along the way had there been feedback loops, constant communication. The team knows they have a shared unified goal, right? There is none of this. And then at the same time, you are locking in who does what and where, right? At the end of the day, sales is going to report either to sales or marketing. A lot of agencies I'm seeing right now, a lot of sales teams are bubbling up to CMOs, right? To the marketing angle. And if that's the case, then you need to understand what goals will look like in those roles and understand then, and also communicate to both roles. Half the time, sales doesn't even know how marketing gets paid or what they're even focused on. And straight up the same thing with marketing. They have no idea how a sales rep is getting paid, any of that process, to where all of a sudden when they communicate, they're like, oh, I get it. And you're like, yeah, that's how I get paid. So that's why we do what we do. Or, they expect us to get you 50 leads over the month, from the marketing side. And this is how they're scored. This is what's going on. And this is where it came from leadership. And now sales is like, oh, so you're not sending me hot leads. You're just sending scores based on yes. Oh, okay. Got it. And now they can approach those. And now all of a sudden they're converting more because they're coming in at the right moment now, being like, okay, so when I get it indicated to me that this person raised their hand, this is what that actually means. So when I come in on the call, I'm going to go this direction. And so now you just start seeing everything kind of communicated, conversations are happening, and they're all aligned in, hey, how are we doing together? Right? And then they're willing to give feedback too on, hey, these leads aren't good. Say that. Talk to me. Go in the system. Indicate it. Put what you thought. Put notes in there. Document that for us so that we do know, okay, what we're bringing over needs to maybe do another funnel or maybe another week of engagement before we kick it over to you. Going back to my example, I had a team meeting where we had both lines parallel to each other, marketing leads, inbound leads, and outreach by the sales reps. And they were parallel together. When we realized that shouldn't be the case, there was a marketing funnel. There should be, two different lines, and they should not be parallel. And that means everything marketing is getting is just passing over the fence, and that's it. And it's like, wait a minute. So then we started scoring. We started marketing funnels, nurturing campaigns, and then we created that score system. The sales reps knew that score system, and now they're all bought in, and our conversion went through the roof. Things got to breathe a little bit longer. And then we were starting to convert more revenue, and marketing saw their numbers go up and sales saw theirs go up on the other side.
So I'm going to pick your brain a little bit more here, Tom, because I want to know if you can share a specific example of a client where aligning messaging had a major impact on their pipeline or their closing rates. I know you were talking to some positives just now, but perhaps, taking a look at the closing rate specifically. And can we actually twist your arm for some specific numbers?
Let's see. So just in Q2, a client that I worked with, they had missed quota by 50% as a team. Marketing was misaligned with sales. They had their two leaders, and I got brought in to support them. And what we started doing was implementing the things we talked about, which was we got the marketing sharing the content calendar. We got the feedback loops discussed. We got them to do ICP and buyer persona exercises to really dive in from a marketing angle and from a sales angle. Marketing was writing all the sales messaging for the sales reps. So all the tools were overseen by marketing. So you could see how, a sales rep using marketing messaging wasn't going to land. Email rates were poor, open rates, because the messaging was just so cheesy. It was just written by marketing. So I came in, we ran through some workshops, and they were able to move from 50% to 81% quota attainment in quarter over quarter. So they had about a 31% move, and they would have had 100%, but $2 million deals were snagged and had to go into Q4. So now they're on pace for 100% with that momentum. And now sales and marketing is a lot more unified and running. And for the AEs, they were able to then get quality stuff being passed over the fence. And so their close rate went from 25% to 50% within the quarter. So they were able to then go from about 1 and 4 to 2 and 4 because marketing was now kind of revamping their side of the house with branding. We talked a lot about resources and gives, and the sales team kind of showing them what these prospects are saying on the phone, what our customers are saying, like what could really move them. So marketing started creating some stuff for us in that quarter, little handouts, resources, things that really were more relevant. Because a lot of times too, marketing will just create collateral and deliver it to the sales team. And they'll be like, wait a minute, you spent the last 6 months building that? Like, we don't need that. That's not what we should have been putting our time and energy to. That's not what the market wanted or whatnot, or it just doesn't land because marketing just thought to build this versus talking with the sales team in those feedback loops and being like, okay, so a lot of our clients aren't moving forward because of XY competitor. We're going to go to the drawing board, do some SWOT analysis. We're going to do some kill sheets. We're going to kind of figure out some positioning there to empower you guys. So as you deal with that, you'll be more understanding of like what we do, how we do it, all of that. And then our marketing ads will kind of go into those pain points of that competitor to try to drive some business, right? So we worked on that. Then the sales reps were reaching out with more relevancy, and it was setting up that handoff to the AEs a lot stronger to where they went from 25 to about 50%. And that's why they kind of had that quota attainment as an entire org go from 50% to 81%. We did that at another company, the one where I was sharing the two parallel lines. That one changed our reps from, this was in 2014, 2015. And we had, again, the CRO came in, had the whole teams together. We saw these kind of broken revenue streams. Our revenue as an SMB every month was kind of not there. Really, really bad. We'd always come into the finish line just scraping by. Once we had this implementation of kind of creating these funnels. So marketing spent like the next 2 quarters, I think, kind of starting a scoring system. There was a lot of collaboration with pulling us off the sales floor to take us in rooms, kind of walk through things like, hey, if somebody downloaded a white paper, what would that indicate to you? And how would you score that? Would that be a great thing, like a bad thing? And it was like, oh, white paper doesn't show us much. So they'd be like, okay, we're going to score that like a 10, right? On our scale of 100. So if they download 5 white papers, okay, it'll build to like a 50 score, right? Like that's a little bit how they're kind of diving in more. So once we got that structure in and that marketing funnel changed, they impacted our sales reps, where us passing live meetings over, and they went and had I think it was a 24% jump in Q3. So this went through Q1, Q2. We were kind of missing quota during that time, kind of coming in at the finish line. Reps weren't converting our stage 2s. I think we were at like conversion from meeting passed over to stage 2 was at like 20%. It wasn't great. They weren't really relevant. They weren't kind of knots. And so when we did the marketing funnel, Q3, Q4, we ended up pulling out the year. And I think we did like a 24% close rate jump for the AEs because things that were now finally being outreached to and kind of targeted and sent over were a lot more relevant, and they were getting more opportunities to set up the close. And I think it was about 20 to 25% jump for those guys just by implementing a scoring system and kind of a feedback loop, doing little interviews and kind of, hey, let's get you involved in the scoring system. Let's walk through it together. And then finding out 5 reps that were like, yeah, white paper doesn't mean anything to us, where marketing was scoring it at like a 50 at first, right off the bat. They were like, oh, white paper shows this indication. That's great. And so, yeah, so we saw about a 20 to 25% jump for them on their close rates. And then we ended up pulling out and hit, I think, like 95% of quota that year, just between Q3 and Q4. We were doing about 2 to 3 passovers a day per SDR. So we were, calling people. We lived on the floor with the reps, so we'd actually personally pass it over the fence to them live. And so we were doing like 2-3 a day average, and we moved to a 5 to 7 a day average within those 2 quarters and then our partners were being empowered as well. And we had a partner system to support the AEs. So about 25% there. And then my most recent client, we just did a 50% to 81% quarter over quarter, and then helped those AEs close from about 25% to about 50% average once we started kind of queuing up better conversations and opportunities.
So, Tom, in your experience, what would you say is the biggest revenue killer when sales and marketing teams aren't aligned? And then how do you help businesses fix it?
It's inconsistent messaging. I'll keep bringing it back. When marketing says one thing and sales says another, trust erodes, deals stall, and it just causes, again, a bad experience for your customers and your clients and prospects coming through to your brand, because they're looking at an ad, they're seeing one thing, they get in with the rep reaches out, they're seeing something different, and then that, like, it's just an inconsistent message across the board. And so the way to fix that is starting with defining the ICP together and sharing. So again, do the exercise together. What is the ideal client profile? What are we looking for? What is marketing actually doing for demographics and targeting? And then what is sales looking for as far as like their criteria? You'll find out a lot of times that is a misalignment there on what an ICP is. And then you're ensuring shared accountability for the pipeline metrics, right? Again, what is marketing going to be held to, and how are they going to impact the revenue funnel? Because a lot of times you'll go to sales kickoffs at the beginning of the year, and, the boss has to tell the team, we hit quota for this amount, but you're going to see this slide by marketing where they're going to account for over 30-40% of our pipeline. This is why. And the rep's like, but I booked that and we did that. And it's like, yeah, but it's scored because it came from them and their lead source. So marketing is going to get that credit. And then you have this misalignment, this frustration, where it is shared accountability for those pipeline metrics. And again, if marketing is failing the sales team, don't put that pressure on the sales team. And if the sales team is failing the marketing team, then that needs to be addressed, and that's not marketing's fault. And you always get this battle between these two of, we're sending you the leads, we sent you 200 last month, and then you've got the reps being like, okay, well, let's score the 200, and you sent me really 5. Like, what are we doing? And so you just get this frustration. So sharing that accountability for pipeline, what does that mean? Who's responsible? How are they impacting stage 2s? How are they impacting, that conversion from intent to closed meetings, right? If it's not working, we need to address that. And so just kind of making sure they're aligned in the same revenue. At the end of the day, the North Star for the entire company is always revenue. Doesn't matter how it gets there. Doesn't matter who gets the credit. It is one unit. And we then kind of delegate within that how you impact those pieces individually so we can make sure that works. But all together, you build out like a whole little org chart, like, revenue's here, and then you kind of start breaking down the pieces and put everybody in where they need to go. And then as long as that all plugs and plays and executes accordingly, your North Star of revenue will drive, right? And everybody sees where they fit in, what their impact is, and then they're accountable to that part of that funnel. So sharing that accountability, and then just creating a culture of constant feedback. Again, as you're defining the ICP, you start refining things, make sure the sales reps are reporting back those leads. All the time, these reps will burn through the leads and then not say anything and be like, well, I went through my bucket. I called everything marketing sent over. It was all trash. Thanks. The manager will go in there and there's nothing in there that says why this was that. Or, okay, you talked to them. They'll be like, oh, well, they were with a competitor. They are over here with these guys. Okay, why isn't it in here? Right? Let's get a field in here. So, hey, marketing, I'm going to now have my sales reps put on the contact management system this field that says competitor. Why don't you and sales figure out who the top 10 are that you're seeing across the board? We'll get those as options. So every time a deal is closed loss, we can report back the reason why. Another big one, right, is the closed loss reasoning. So many will not put that in there, right? Why didn't the deal move forward? What was it, a competitor? Was it timing? Was it budget? Because that enriches marketing for the future to run better targeted campaigns, better messaging, and actually proactively get ahead of your objections you're seeing later in the funnel, right? Because now they're marketing towards that and addressing that and say they know that their competitors have really bad customer service and they win purely on that because product to product is pretty much apples to oranges, right? Or apples to apples. It's just more the customer service. Well, then they can run ad campaigns that target specifically that. Are you dealing with crappy customer service? Do you want to be like, and then they run that, right? And so it just makes the whole engine run a lot smoother because that constant feedback is happening, and they can then be supporting one another and together kind of figure out the execution formula that's repeatable and scalable because they're kind of figuring it out together.
Yeah. And I mean, that constant feedback, it's a learning process in essence, what it's doing, because it's this constant like loop, that's like feeding back. Okay, this works, this does work, let's do this, or let's try this, or let's try and do this together, and let's learn from this. I absolutely love it. And I love the whole idea of also just sharing that accountability and sharing that information. Because that is going to contribute towards the bigger picture and get you exactly to where you want to be. And as you mentioned, what is the one thing that's the North Star? It is revenue growth for your business. Yeah.
That's it. That's why these people are in play. And I'm hoping one day AI steps in and it's almost, watching and analyzing the interactions within the revenue engine. And it's almost proactive for you to be like, hey, these are the things that we're seeing within the funnel and giving reports back to marketing. Like it's all being fed, and AI can analyze, the internal engine and kind of give you that analysis and almost produce a SWOT for you for all the departments, and kind of just through interactions of your software, the meetings you're having, it would be able to analyze and kind of help you. But that's why right now it's just a lot of feedback loops and too many silos. Marketing, again, is heads down, doing their thing. They're running and operating. And sales is over here doing the same thing. And in a remote world, it's even more broken because, marketing's got their cool little chat over here where they just talk to each other. And sales is over here doing their little chats. And you don't have a unified chat for you to express. And also a culture of accountability and collaboration, because they should be able to openly have those discussions with each other without feeling attacked or defensive. It's again, we're bringing information to you. And again, you got to train your team on communication skills of, again, not saying but, say and, like just these type of different things, because you want them to openly be like, hey, that lead wasn't great, right? And here's 3 reasons why. And then you can give that process, write that up for your team. Anytime you have a bad lead, here's the form to fill out. Go ahead. It's a Google form. It'll go straight to marketing. You'll put in the CRM link. You'll put exactly 3 different reasons from these drop downs as to why it wasn't a great lead. And then, some reasoning behind it that will go to marketing. Now, every time your SDRs are sitting and going through, or your sales reps are going through and they see these bad quality, they can report it through that feedback loop without having to message directly to you and say, hey, this was a bad one. They could just submit it through the feedback loop. That'll go to marketing, and every week they're monitoring those. And now they're going in alignment in their meetings and saying, okay, we had 5 bad leads reported this week. Kind of looking at the analysis, this is the reasons why. Let's address that for next week so we can tighten that up, right? And now they're getting that submission offline, kind of in a bucket, and the reps can just, in real time as they're going through those leads, document that stuff and get it back to you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so my next question that I have for you, Tom, it's a question that I think it's something that we've all experienced at some stage in our lives, and it's a CEO that's hesitant to change. And some CEOs are quite privy to that. Yeah, right? So now they're hesitant to change, especially because their teams are hitting the quotas and they're just convinced everything is A-okay, this is good, I'm not going to move from where I'm at right now. So how would you actually convince leaders that the better alignment can actually unlock even greater growth and actually get them to just get out of that comfort zone and start excelling towards a sort of to a greater North Star, if one were to put it that way. But you get what I'm saying, right?
In anything, and I learned early on in my sales career, it is a very political game, and you have to truly understand people and their mindset, the way they work, the reason they do things, and kind of understand what makes them tick. And in the C-suite, their whole world revolves around numbers, scaling, growth, right? All of these things. And so for me, if I deal with these stubborn bulls that just don't want to move, and they're like, nah, Tom, I'm good where we're at. We're hitting quota. Why would I want to even tighten that up even more? I show them the numbers. Okay. You got to speak their language. And so I build a use case. So to your point, you said, well, look, we're going to go stagnant in 3 months if we don't fix this, John. John, we got to sit down. We got to look at sales and marketing. I know you see we're hitting revenue, and I understand that, but in 3 months, we're going to get stagnant. They're going to not listen. They're going to be like, okay, cool. Well, go fix it. Or I don't know what you need from me. Or like, I don't care. We're doing fine. We'll get it. You have to come prepared to show them the cost of it in action and speak their language and hit their checkbook where it hurts the most, right? Show them the numbers and say, John, I tried to tell you we were falling behind. 60 days ago, I told you, I'm going to be honest with you. We're now at a part where it's really going to hurt. Let me show you some numbers real quick. And let me show you the impact that if we don't fix where we're at right now, this is where we're going to be in 12 months. And this is what could happen. And then you start showing them the numbers. And then you also show them situations where maybe go do some feedback in looking in your network of friends that might be at places that have good alignment and kind of run some of their numbers or kind of talk to them a little bit and say, look, aligned teams see 38% higher win rates and 200% more marketing generated revenue through the alignment here. This is somebody I am close with that, they're aligned. This is what could save us. And with that higher win rate, this is where it could go. And so it's an efficiency play too. Talk about efficiency with them and say, John, look, you're going to reduce waste that we're wasting here. All these dollars going to these ads, we're going to reduce that. We're going to shorten sales cycles by up to 3 weeks. Right now, we're at a 90-day deal cycle. If we can align here and really address this, we could bring that down to 45 days, right? I think I can really hit within a 45-day window. If we could get these two teams aligned with a couple of tweaks, we can get that shortened. And then we could build a more predictable revenue engine down the road here because we're going to kind of get that alignment in. So it's just speaking their language, kind of showing them the inefficiencies in what they're doing, the cost of inaction of staying where they are today, and then also showing them what good looks like. A lot of times you can get people with the herd theory, right? If they see all the cows going this way and they're this lone one, they're going to just immediately go with the others, right? They're going to just jump in there just because of that herd theory. And so you show them use cases and good experiences of good marketing alignment, or I just go do it and then show them the use case. I'm not going to wait for my hand to be held. I would rather ask for forgiveness than I might run a sample program with 2 marketers and 2 sales reps, and we're going to go in and we're just going to try something and test something. And then I'm going to go report that back and say, hey, John, remember I told you about misalignment? I had my team put together a content calendar. I kind of just took some action here. We started doing this, and I just wanted to show you in 2 weeks, look at what's happened with, marketing generated revenue. The last 15 leads that come over, we closed 4 of them, just by simply changing our ad language to this. Now he's like, okay, can we scale that? Can you do more of that? Or what do you need from me to make that happen then at a larger scale? Great, John, let's get things moving. So you almost got to hold their hand, speak their language, and truly understand their world, because they don't care if you just tell them, most of you listening, right? What's going to take you to move and try to tackle this, whether you're doing good or bad right now, is what's going to cost you if you don't. Nobody goes out and buys a new TV just for fun anymore. It's, I'm going to go buy it if my TV breaks and the Super Bowl's on in the next hour, and I have 15 people come to my house to watch it, and my TV went to turn on and it broke. Right? But am I just going to go buy one to buy one? Probably not. Like, cool, I see it over there. It's great. But it's a cost of inaction. Same with like a deal. You walk by, the TV's 70% off on Black Friday back in the 90s. You did that because you knew the cost of not doing that. It's going to go back up to that double price just a week later. So you got to kind of talk to them about the cost of what's going to happen if they don't fix this, and show them the numbers on good and bad at the current way it's going to go. We can either stay at the rate we're going, and this is what's going to happen, John, and I have the proof here based on the last, legacy data of the last 6 months, or here's what I'm seeing is going to be successful if we can do these 1 or 2 things in aligning the team here. And then they can see that story.
In essence, it's almost like building a case, putting all
Build
your
a use case
evidence together. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you have to show them, because telling them isn't going to do it. That's not going to do anything. And especially if they're hitting numbers, what's going to make me move? My TV turns on. What do you want from me, John? It works. I can turn it on. My car is running. I can get to A to B. But when somebody can show you the cost of what's going to happen if you don't, and you just stay comfortable, because once you get comfortable, you get stagnant. Right? And then inefficiencies are exposed and things start slipping through the cracks. So you got to kind of be willing to get with the program and, change some things around before it gets too late.
Definitely. So, we've been chatting a lot about the feedback loops, right? Between like sales and marketing teams, and also why it's so important for revenue growth. So If we are dealing with like smaller teams, with limited resources, creating those effective feedback systems, how do you do that with like not overloading not overloading the staff?
It's kind of understanding them on how they operate, what they would like to see. Like I said, if it's bi-weekly and they feel that, with asynchronous communication and some other guidelines and works, maybe bi-weekly is more appropriate for them, right? Versus a weekly sync. But ideally, it's a weekly sync so that they have that time to breathe, run through the week, but every Friday come prepared, right? We don't need to be having a daily sync every day. We don't need to be talking constantly, but just know every Friday, I need you to come prepared for that, right? Just come prepared to talk about a few things and we'll breathe there. That way they're not overwhelmed with like, every day I got to send a daily report, or every morning I got to come in for 15 minutes and like sync with the group. Like, I just want to get into it, get my work done, and have this moment where I can just unload all of that to you in a more defined environment and time frame. Then, maybe a monthly moment where you can go over wins and losses. I think just what I'm trying to get at is break things up in smaller bite-sized pieces, or find a way to let things breathe in between one another. And then find out what works for them and be willing to refine as you go. A lot of times, so many businesses cost themselves, and I did this in my early days too, of just not moving. Action is going to be your best answer to all of this. Just take action. Stop overthinking it. Stop making it this big process, this big project. And even listening to me, you think like you got to do all this stuff. Stop. Just go talk to people. Take action. Get moving now. And then you can refine as you go, right? If the team's like, yo, weekly is just a lot. We can't do weekly. We've got a lot of projects. We're rescheduling every week as it is anyway. Like, we're not even making them. Then cool, let's move that. You know what? I hear you guys. This is getting to be overwhelming. Like, I did that with my VA. I overwhelmed her in the beginning with a couple projects, and now we've been able to refine and let it breathe, because I told her, just do your daily operation as best as you can, and then we'll find your benchmarks, right? And now, after a month, we've refined that process, right, to where we can reduce it. So with feedback loops, don't make them a complicated process. Don't make them over the top. A weekly or bi-weekly sync, and then a monthly win and loss analysis. So that way, just once a month, you actually tackle it. Doesn't need to be weekly, doesn't need to be every day, but a monthly time to just kind of digest the wins and losses between both teams. And then just like regular surveys or check-ins, with those frontline folks, just every once a month, a bi-weekly, send a little survey or a check-in, make sure everybody is okay. You're asynchronous, right? It doesn't have to be, I need to micromanage you every day. Going back to your point, like, I need you to send me a daily recap every day. I need to know these reports. Why didn't we book these meetings today? Why did we lose these 3 deals right this moment today? It's like, no, we're going to address those at the end of the month. Let the month breathe, let the month play out. Because a lot of times, if you're doing it so early and so soon, you're not even giving anybody a chance on your team to get to where they need to go. That's like when you're setting sales numbers. Why do we give an AE, your closer, a whole year to chase a sales number, but the frontline rep getting those meetings is only given a month, right? And after 2 months of no success, they're put on a PIP. But the AE can go 6 months, 8 months without closing one deal or progressing anything, and you're good with that because by the end of the year, they're held to that $1 million number. And as long as they hit it by that point, I don't care how you did it, you hit it. Well, why is that okay for them and not for me? That let me breathe, right? Let things breathe and give them time to process. You don't need to be, overwhelming this. So really 3 simple things you could do right now: a bi-weekly or a weekly sync. Keep it very simple, but also have an agenda. They know exactly what they're coming in with. This is not a waste of time for anybody. There's 3 questions they all need to be coming prepared with every week. And then some caveats that get in there, but make it real simple. Hey, every bi-weekly Friday we meet, I need you to address these 3 questions when you come to the meeting from marketing standpoint and sales. And then 1 monthly meeting that we talk about wins and losses as a whole. And then in between that, I'm going to set up a workflow that's sending just kind of a quick check-in, a score of 1 to 5. How are you feeling this week on, sales and marketing alignment? And just kind of send that periodically to just touch base. And as soon as I see that star rating drop, I know I got to get involved. Simplify the process, make it very easy, but have it.
The one thing that stands out for me from what you're saying is speaking to your staff. So speak to them, find out where they're at, because then you'd be able to ascertain just how much needs to be done. but you need to understand what is happening in the core part of your business and where everyone is at. And then you can start implementing, all of these feedback loops. And then you'll know exactly the sort of rhythm, within the organization itself.
You create an orchestra. You create a revenue symphony
Yes.
when it can work, and you let it breathe. But don't make assumptions either. CEO, be okay with asking questions and being okay with the confidence to go in the room and the answers potentially, but let them talk to you and express it in their own words, right? Let them have that accountability and that trust. And again, if you don't have that, you have the wrong team in place.
Yes.
You should be able to come to them and have that hey, I'm kind of thinking right now, we're not alignment in marketing and sales. I'm seeing the numbers drop. But before I dive in and tell you all what I think you should do, I just like to hear in your own words, where do you think we're at? And if you were CEO, what would you do in this situation? I have some ideas. What would you do? I have some ideas, but I want to hear it from you. And they'll be like, oh, well, I'd have a team lunch every Friday for us all to go out. You're like, no, not that. I need to know what you would like, what you would fix. Well, I'd have every Friday off. We would not, wear business clothes on Friday. We'd be cash. No, I want to know what you're doing, fixing the marketing stuff. Oh, that? Okay. But yeah, just talk to them, right? Be that CEO that the best CEOs, Steve Jobs, some of them, they care. They live and breathe their organization, and they know without those people with the boots on the ground, they aren't who they are. They don't exist, right? Their company can't move without them. And so when you take it from that standpoint that, man, I'm going to come down from the Ivy Tower and I'm going to step in here for about a week. I'm going to bring my little scribe behind me, my EA, and have them kind of document notes. I'm going to get some meetings with some folks, and I'm just going to step out of the tower for a minute. I'm going to cancel my meetings on the week. And I just kind of want to see where my team's at on all these different departments and be genuine about it too, like a natural curiosity. And once I gather all that, now I'm going to sit and strategically figure out a plan and bring in my partners that I need to from those departments. And we're going to figure out the game plan to realign everyone and make sure we are one heartbeat and one symphony. And it's not perfect. Don't get me wrong, man. It's going to have mistakes. Things are going to happen. But this is just a mindset and the things that you need to be looking at within your organization.
Tom, for companies looking to outsource parts of their sales and marketing, what should they be aware of when choosing an agency, and how can they make sure that agency becomes an extension of their team and not just another vendor?
Yeah, this is a good one. I live in this world, right? I run an outsourced lead agency on top. It's one of the arms of the business. I work with friends that are in that space. And I think the number one thing to always look at is when you're looking to bring in that external partner, it kind of just starts with how they prioritize onboarding and what next steps look like. Because, they should spend a significant amount of time on the upfront work, learning your business, your ICP, your voice, your style. Do you need regular you need regular communication, clear KPIs, shared access. It almost should feel that this external partner is an internal partner. And that's what our differentiator is and why we win deals a lot of the times, especially in outsourced lead gen, which has like a 92% failure rate most of the time because lack of collaboration, and people just think it's a set it and forget it, or they bring in a marketer. I've worked with, fractional CMOs that will go into organizations and they're fighting an uphill battle, and everything is constantly questioned and they're like kind of justifying their stuff. And then they're not getting like access internally to like do what they need to do to really move the needle. And so if any of you are listening, want to potentially be like, maybe we need to, instead of taking it all in-house and putting all this money together, I should just outsource it. Make sure that when you're meeting with those partners, listen to how they prioritize onboarding. Like, what's those next steps? Because if they're not caring really about you and just going to put you in the cog machine, you're clearly going to know like their marketing's, oh yeah, I've got frameworks, I'm the CMO for 8 other companies. I'll just run you through that system. And it's like, well, okay, no. What about my brand and like my identity? Where they're like, hey, the first 2 hours together, we're going to dive in and go through your competitors. We're going to go through your current messaging. I want to look at some of your ad data. Like, I really want to understand your brand voice. I want to understand who you're targeting. From there, we'll then be able to cater a very strategic plan for you and a marketing plan on how we would go to market in that. And that's what I'd like to show you in our next meeting after we get that right up. Now you're like, okay, I want to kind of partner with this person. So it's just looking at that and then kind of their own feedback loops too, right? How often are you going to be syncing up? How often are you going to be talking? And ideally, you just want them to feel like being a part of your team. Let them in. but also know that they're going to be external. But that's what I would say is just let them into your systems, give them the trust, hire somebody you truly believe you can give the keys to the kingdom with, but also set very clear expectations. The one question I always love to ask them is, if we partner for the next 6 months in your outbound motion, what does success look like for you in that, right? If in 6 months you paid this investment, at the bottom line, bare minimum, this is the one thing that happened out of this relationship for this investment, what does that look like for you, right? And so now I kind of know what they're looking for, and we can kind of strategically put that plan together to where I am internally with you, but I'm an external resource.
Yeah. I feel like you've actually answered my last question, but I'm going to ask anyway. It was basically around the qualities or practices that you believe set agencies apart as true strategic partners for businesses. And you were just talking so much about, one actually as an outsourced, partner, traveling that journey with the organization itself and being very present, I think is one of the most important in that moment. Is there anything additional that you can share with us? Because you have actually given us quite a bit on that. Yeah.
The one I would add is a big indicator is an agency that is proactive, not reactive. I think that's what separates a lot of the good agencies from the ones or the fractional people that come in. There's some that are fractional that will be an external partner for you, but they're waiting at your direction. They're waiting on you to lead them. I was when I first dove in myself, I was expecting the client to walk me through it, right? And it's no, I hired you to come in and be that other, fresh set of eyes and be proactive with me. And so you want a partner that is bringing new ideas to the table. They're challenging the status quo. They're challenging your assumptions, and they're constantly looking for ways to improve your engine and giving you that feedback and that advice. And they'll act like a part of your internal team, not just somebody you hired, and they'll be proactive with you.
Tom, thank you so much for joining us on the show. It was great chatting with you. I feel like I can carry on like this for the next couple of days because I have so many questions, but I know you're a busy guy. You got to do your thing, and I'm probably
going to do a part two.
Maybe we can do a part two, definitely. But Tom, it has been absolutely amazing. I love how you sort of methodically approach things. I love how you get very involved in what it is that you're doing, because I think that is so important, especially for you because you're on an outsourced basis. If you think about it, it's not just about it being a company or your organization or your brand. It's your baby. I mean, you poured your blood, sweat, and tears into this. So it's great to know that there is someone like you out there that actually cares for the brand, or for the agency, or for the CEO, for that matter, and that you are present in that moment all the time. So thank you so much. We really do appreciate it.
Absolutely. I've had a blast. This is great. I hope people found it insightful. They can follow me on LinkedIn. That's where I live and breathe. So they can, all those good things will be in there. Where to find all that stuff, guys. Not your first rodeo. But happy to have a time with you, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks, Tom.
Curious about what top brands look for when choosing an agency? Tune into our latest episodes where we reveal the decision-making secrets of leading brands. Subscribe to the DesignRush podcast and stay ahead of the competition.